Hello, everyone. Sorry about that break in the transmission. We are just about to talk about the housing revenue account budget key decision for 2021/22 and future years to 2025/26, key decision 842 at the bottom of page 20 of the agenda. And I'll just read the Cabinet resolution. Number one, the housing revenue budget, account budget for 2021/22 as set out in Appendix 1 of the report be approved. Number two, the indicative housing revenue account budget set out in Appendix 1 of the report for 2022/23 to 2025/26 be approved. Three, the approved rent charges for 2021/22 shown in paragraph 3.10 of the report be noted. And four, the minimum level of HRA reserves to remain at £1.3 million in recognition of the overall funding value of the HRA to be approved. And five, the report be recommended to the Extraordinary Council meeting on 28th of January 2021 for approval. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Naish.
Yeah, I did. It was a two-parter. The first one was just the summary refers to the to 44k. I just wanted to clarify whether that was actually a deficit or if that's still a surplus but at the 44,000 figure. And the second part was just what the prognosis, if you like, for that returning to more like the predicted surplus, whether we've started to take a view on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I can confirm that £44,000 is still a in-year surplus. So it was predicted to be £312,000. It is still a surplus of £44,000 in year. The housing revenue account itself does have a surplus working balance, so the reserves are in surplus, and as the report recommends, it is recommended that we keep a working surplus of 1.3 million for 21/22 moving forward. Since the housing service was brought back in-house, the balances, so those surpluses, are beginning to increase and have already done so since the housing service was returned into the council. In previous years, I understand that the balance of 1.3 million had been breached, but the position in the appendix attached to this report, the forecast shows that within the next 5 years, that balance, the predicted surplus, would be £12.1 million. So that illustrates the direction of travel and the impact of the recent changes that have taken place, both in delivering efficiency savings, but also the increase in rents following 4 years' worth of rent reductions. I don't know if that answers your question, Councillor Naish.
No, it does, and I think the long-term position looks healthy even with this setback in the current surplus. So yeah, appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Are there any other questions for Alison on this key decision? No, thank you. Is anyone against endorsing this key decision or wishing to abstain? That key decision is endorsed. Thank you. And Alison, you are now free to leave the meeting. Thank you for your attendance. As usual, you're welcome to stay, but equally, I know you may have other things to do.
Thank you, Chair. I will now leave the meeting. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you again for that. The next key decision of Cabinet is General Fund Capital Programme 2021/22 to 2025/26. Key decision 849 on page 22. The Cabinet resolved that 1, the capital programme for 2021/22 of £1.723 million as shown in Appendix A be approved and recommended to Extraordinary Council on 28th of January 2021. 2. The indicative capital programme for 2022/23 to 2025/26 of £5.447 million, also set out in the Appendix A, to be approved and recommended to Extraordinary Council on 28th of January 2021. Does anyone have any questions? Is anyone against endorsing this decision or wishing to abstain? No, thank you. That key decision is endorsed. So let me just get my papers in order. Okay, the next one is the medium-term financial plan 2021/22 to 2025/26, key decision 850 on page 23. The Cabinet resolved that 1. The predictions for the next 5 financial years as set out in Appendix 1 of the report be noted. And 2. The medium-term financial plan for 2021/22 to 2025/26 as set out in Appendix 1 of the report as part of the framework for the next 5 years' budgets be approved. 3. Council tax be increased as part of the 2021/22 budget preparations. And 4. The calculation and declaration of the council tax deficit or surplus for 2021/22 budget on 15th of January 2021 be delegated to the Head of Finance and Property. Does anyone have any questions? Is anyone against endorsing this decision?
Sorry, Chair, I raised my hand, I didn't put it in the comment. Chair,
Yep.
Chair,
Councillor Coulthard, yeah.
Thank you for recognising me. When I've read through the Cabinet, obviously minutes of this, it mentions something called the S80 Partnership and the Bezza Hill Development.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about these particular groups. I've found some stuff online about who makes up the S80 Partnership, the business online, which is obviously part of the council executive. But I'm just wondering if somebody can just quickly tell me what Bezza Hill Developments are, somebody we've got into partnership with. And this is purely, I'm not negative, but I'm very, very conscious I don't want reputational risk to Bassett Law Council, as we've seen in other councils not too far about it from here, that when we get into business with people and things go wrong, companies dissolve and council reputations are still left there.
Thank you for your question. I'm aware that we haven't got a finance officer present tonight. What we can do is submit the detail of your question. But Steve, I don't know if you want to comment on the general sort of answer.
My understanding is it's as Councillor Coulthard said, it's a partnership, but it's there to help invest in building developments, and particularly areas where we perhaps traditionally there's not been a returnable market value on particular sites, but it enables us to build housing, particularly that aimed at some of the problems that we've identified earlier in the evening in terms of affordable properties, etc. So it's an arm that allows us to do that. Taking the point that Councillor Coulthard's made about reputational risk, a lot of that has been associated with councils who speculated into the property market, and obviously we all know what's happened there, and they've have found some difficulties in that regard. My understanding is our exposure is nothing like that level, because it's a different type of development vehicle that we're looking at. But as you've said, we'll get a full answer for Councillor Coulthard on that.
Thank you, Steve. I think that's what we can do at the moment, Councillor Coulthard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on this item? Okay, I'll just ask it again. Is anyone against endorsing this decision or wishing to abstain?
Chair, I wish to abstain. Councillor Coulter.
Councillor Coulter is abstaining. Okay. Okay, this key decision is endorsed. And the next one is the calculations of the council tax base 2021/22, key decision 851 on page 26. The Cabinet resolved that 1, the council tax base for the year 2021/22 shall be 35,771.49 Band D properties, subject to the council tax reduction scheme being agreed as proposed. 2, the calculations set out in Appendix 1 to agree the council tax base calculation for the district for 2021/22 be recommended to council and officers be instructed to notify this figure to the major precepting authorities. 3, the calculations set out in Appendix 2 figures which are tax bases for parts of the area be recommended to council and officers be instructed to notify the 2021/22 tax base to town and parish councils, parish meetings and chartered trustees as soon as practicable. Does anyone have any questions? Is anyone against endorsing this decision or wishing to abstain? No, thank you. That key decision is endorsed. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 8, waiver call-in, decision taken without sufficient notice. There are none. Item 9, possible call-in of decisions made by Cabinet or by Cabinet members. There are none. Item 10A is the Overview and Scrutiny Committee Work Programme 2020/21 on pages 27 and 36. Now, I just want to say that in relation to Appendix B of this report, you will be aware that part of the scrutiny's work involves the review of the Bassetlaw, Newark and Sherwood Community Safety Partnership. This is normally quite a lengthy process involving input from not only Bassetlaw Council officers, but also from staff of partner organisations. The COVID-19 situation has impacted significantly on the time and capacity for those normally involved in the review. And I'm therefore proposing that this year, given these exceptional circumstances, that we go for a light touch approach. The suggestion, therefore, is that at the 23rd of February ONS, we receive presentations and a question and answer session from council staff on street homelessness during COVID-19. I know this is an issue that's received a lot of public comments, and therefore I'm sure members will find it beneficial to receive such a presentation and to enable them to review and ask questions on this. And I think I'd just also comment that, of course, when we originally planned the topic for the Newark and Sherwood Community Safety Partnership Review, we didn't imagine at that point that things would be as they are now. You know, we're very much a peak of the COVID outbreak, and you know, we for that sort of topic we need to be able to sort of take stock of what has happened. Okay. I'm going to hand over to Richard to outline the rest of the report, and then we can go into questions.
Thank you, Chair. So, notwithstanding what you've just said, the work programme is shown in Appendix A of the report, and obviously at 3.1 we do identify that the work programme is a working document, and should we need to change elements of it, you know, at fairly short notice, we can do so. That's all I've got really to add to what you've said, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Do members have questions?
Just a comment on flooding, if I may, John.
Yes.
I've been in contact with Richard and Maddie today. As you're aware, Storm Christoph is due to hit us in the next 24 hours. I understand from the BBC News that Doncaster have declared a major incident, even though nobody's actually flooded yet. And they are at a very advanced stage of preparedness. And so I emailed Richard and Maddie earlier on today just to see if Bassett Law had done anything along those lines, because obviously our review of the last flood response isn't going to be ready for another month or two yet. But it looks as though there's a fair chance we may have some significant events in the next 24 to 48 hours. I've also emailed Tracy Taylor as our county councillor to ask if Notts County Council are doing anything, given that they are the lead flood authority, but I've not had a response as yet.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I mean, you're right. It could, but we could be overtaken by events in terms of flooding, but let's hope not. Does anybody want to, any of the officers want to respond to that? Richard, I was just wondering.
Yeah, I've fed Councillor Watson's comments to the Senior Communications Officer and the Safety and Resilience Manager as well. I do believe that they've got an eye on this issue, and obviously if the council need to put any information out to the public, they will do so. So that's the position at the moment.
Thanks, Richard.
Councillor Shepherd, if I could just come in, obviously the situation is being monitored closely, but unlike Doncaster, who are a unitary authority, it would be unusual for the district in its own right to declare a major incident. That would normally in Nottinghamshire come from either the emergency services or the county council, depending on the situation. At this stage, I've been on meetings, and colleagues have been on meetings right prior to this meeting, and that is not the situation at the moment. Clearly, it's been monitored. It is a changeable situation. I believe there is comms ready to go out. It may have already been out on social media in regards to advising people to, make preparations accordingly, and updating on other advice and support. But we are monitoring the situation very closely, and that will continue through the night and into tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for that.
John, I've got my hand on. I'm sure you can't see me, but
no. Thanks, Maddie. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I've had a couple of dealings with the councillor today that Notts County did get in touch and say there might have been some problems. And the appropriate action's been taken to try to alleviate had we got some flooding. I think David Armiger has been involved in getting all sandbags out, and they are in place, especially around Worksop Town Centre at the moment, and I know they're there already. So that's as far as I know, really, but Notts County were quite quick on getting forward with information to say that this is the problem and this is what is being dealt with, and it's been dealt very quickly by the ward councillor and also by the officers already. So hopefully, with the fingers crossed, we won't have as much as last year. Thanks, Chair. Thank you,
Maddie. Councillor Richardson. That sounds encouraging. That's what we're looking at, isn't it? With the flooding review, hopefully, we've learned the different organisations and the partnership working has learned from that experience, and we can perhaps add to that process in terms of making recommendations.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Chair. Thank you.
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, we've been involved this morning and this afternoon with Shire Oaks and Road East, and we've had sandbags sent out by Notts County Council. They're coordinating the response to the flooding, if there is any flooding. So it's just Notts County Council to do anything like that. We help with them, but as David Arms just sent me an email out as well, telling us about where the sandbags have gone into the sound centre, etc. And therefore they are round the ball, Chairman. They are
good.
ready.
Yeah, that is good. Clearly we've had warning about this, and the water levels are already high, aren't they? Any more questions from
Chairman,
members?
they're not bad. They're not bad on the right at the moment. They're quite low. Because if you look you can look on the website and you can see it. And I can't speak to the idle, but the River Rhine is quite low at the moment, so it's not too bad. It's tomorrow when it's going to happen. Yeah,
I think it was worse a few days ago, wasn't it, with the snow melt? That's encouraging. Any more questions on the work programme?
Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Tamblyn-Saville wishes to speak.
Alan, Councillor Tamblyn-Saville.
Thanks, Chair. It was less on the work programme. It was just as people were mentioning the flooding response. People may have seen already, but the Environment Agency have already deployed the pumps prior to flooding actually starting this time. So it seems they're being more proactive rather than reactive this time. So hopefully getting out early will prevent any major incidents. I just wanted to mention it in case people had missed that, as I was encouraged by the early response this time.
Thank you, Ellen. That is encouraging, isn't it? And again, that's something we can put in our report. If that turns out to be true, that there's been that positive learning. Are there any more questions on that or any other aspects of the work programme? No, in that case, I'll just read out the revised recommendations. I would like to propose that, one, the committee agree that due to the current exceptional circumstances, ONS received presentations and a question and answer session from council staff on street homelessness during COVID-19. And this session is to follow the committee meeting on the 23rd of February. And number two, committee agree the approach to the rest of the work programme as set out in the report. The three members contact the policy and communications units should they have any queries regarding future meetings. Is anyone against that course of action or wishes to abstain? No. Thank you. That is carried then. Now, agenda item 10B is to consider the Cabinet response to the cycling review. So can I just confirm that members have received a copy of this letter? Or yeah. So I don't necessarily need to read it all out.
We've had it, Chair.
Yeah. Perhaps I'll go through it anyway. So the letter sets out the Cabinet response, say, to the cycling review, which reported earlier last year. And we made a number of recommendations, 6 recommendations as set out here. So the first one was the council identifies a cycling champion and ambassadors who will promote cycling in Basildon. And the response from the Cabinet, from leadership, is that that is myself, is to be the council's cycling champion. This is a position to be appointed akin to the Armed Forces champion, etc., in terms of appointment. No ambassadors to be appointed unless agreed with council leadership. No budget will be allocated to this role, nor will there be any specific officer capacity. As the council's cycling champion, you will undertake work to liaise and engage with others as appropriate to raise public awareness and opportunities. Okay, I'll go through all these and then we can ask questions at the end. And number 2, recommendation is officers engage with D2N2 through local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, known as LC-WIP, meetings to secure cycling and walking benefits specifically for Bassetlaw. Cycling champion to undertake this work, engaging with the cycling and infrastructure plan. Nottinghamshire County Council will be asked to look at local opportunities in Bassetlaw to progress cycling and walking. I guess I have done that and I am doing that. They're not currently meeting on the LC WIP, but those meetings were in 2018, and that is progressing. The County Council has a plan for that. 3, through the local plan process, make provision for cycling walking infrastructure in new developments through Section 106 and Community Infrastructure Levy. This is agreed in principle. Work is underway on this, though it is recognised there will be competing infrastructure priorities for future developments. And again, my comment would be just that the local plan does have quite a bit to say about cycling and walking infrastructure. Recommendation 4 was to undertake an appraisal to identify gaps in the cycle network, including cycle parking, to be informed by the local community and local plan evidence, plus an action plan for the future. This is agreed in principle. This work is already underway through the local plan process, though you will need to push and ask Notts County Council what plans they have to address the gaps in local cycle networks and infrastructure in the district. So again, my comment would be, I am doing that, and the County Council plans are emerging as the government has announced, funding last year. The County Council has moved forward with some schemes in the county. Number 5, to review cycling provision and cycle storage in Bassetlaw's parks and council headquarters to maximise their usage. Property and environmental team to look at the opportunities through the council's actual capital resource constraints. For Queen's buildings, keys to be made more easily available and affordable if possible. It was acknowledged that changes to work patterns are likely to impact on take-up. Okay, and number 6, to work with Nottinghamshire County Council to produce a workplace travel plan, including wider assessment of facilities at all council sites to encourage cycling and walking by employees, elected members and visitors. HR to explore with Notts County Council, which is understood to be a free service offered by the County Council, the welfare and wellbeing benefits. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just briefly hand over to Richard for his comments on this and the monitoring process.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of these recommendations, the process would be that these are fed into the council's performance management software and are monitored throughout the year through officers, and in a year's time are brought back to overview and scrutiny for a progress update.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members? Again, I'm just comment that obviously we have been waiting for quite a while, but COVID has delayed everything, and we do understand the capacity constraints on budgets and officer time. So my comment would be probably that this is realistically a reasonable response to recommendations that the working group made, given the current circumstances. Are there any, I'll just ask again, are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, John, I just raised my hand.
James, yeah.
I was a bit disappointed when I read this. I understand that it has to be realistic, but it did feel like it was pushing quite a lot just back to yourself. And it made me think two things, really. I guess one was whether, we just don't have the capacity to be able to do a lot of it, and therefore it's a very reasonable response. My other thoughts were we pushing the wrong thing if we can't do more and we can't be a bit more ambitious, or expect a bit more time and dedicated focus on the topic? So yeah, I think it, as you say, it's probably reasonable, but I didn't read this thinking, oh great, off the back of this review we're going to see some progress in this area. It felt like we were just going to do more of the same, probably with a bit of a sharper focus, but there wasn't anything that particularly stood out to me. And as this was the first review that I was involved with, I was just a little bit sort of nonplussed by it, I think would be my thought, if I'm honest. But that's not a criticism of the response. It's just whether, in the light of everything else that's been happening, it's just become a little bit less of a pressing priority. But I do therefore think that through the local plan, and through the lights of the consultation that we've been doing on West Burton and the future of that site, we really have to make these things a priority, and seek to use the planning infrastructure and mechanisms as best we can to push these forwards. But yeah, they were just my sort of reactions when I was thinking about this.
Thank you for that. No, I understand what you're saying, and you're right that through that local plan process and that recommendation about using the Section 106 and SIL monies and so on, that I think what has changed is that there is more support for that, and it may be that our deliberations and our work has had an effect, despite the shortage of any resources or officer time. So that is sort of happening through the local plan process. And I think it's also become evident in the last year how the county council develops these schemes, because the government has announced funding, and then I've been following this and talking to county councillors and officers from the county, and things are developing, and maybe there's not much come to Basildor yet, but there is a scheme in Retford. That's Randall Way, isn't it? And the a scheme to sort of connect works on Carlton is part of their county council's LC WIP plan. So when the funding becomes available for that, that's encouraging. And I've had conversations with the county about, looking at the design of the A60 as it goes through Carlton, in terms of what they can do to make it more cycle friendly. So there are situations like that are sort of ongoing, and it's from the point of view of what the council, the Basildor, can do. It is really through that planning process. It's good. Are there any more comments or questions?
Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Coulthate wishes to make a comment.
Thank you, and Councillor Coulthate.
Yeah, just to, I won't go over everything that Councillor Nasha just said there, but the first point to raise hit me, Chair. It took me back to being in the police, where if you ask the question of a senior officer, you got given the workload. And what I want to say about that is I'm conscious of your workload, Chair. I'm sure, I don't want to speak about it, but if you do need some of this workload taken off of you, it's something we discussed as a group, the need for a better cycling strategy. You're named in that. I understand why you are named, but please don't be scared to cascade that work down to us. Okay?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, we'll do. And yeah, I'd like everybody to get involved in terms of their own patch, in terms of putting ideas forward. And then we can work with the county councillors, because often it is, there's obviously a political dimension to this, and it has to be the county councillors who can drive it.
cycling shouldn't be one of them. And listen, I live in the real world. We know elections coming up, but we get this right, and it's perfect terrain around here to have genuine cycling strategy. It's quite flat. Even I feel fit cycling around here. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So all I'm saying is, let's work together and what we need to deliver it.
Thanks, Sal. Yeah, it is excellent cycling on some of the quieter roads in the district. It's and with the the COVID impacts, lockdown, I think many people have come to appreciate the importance of being able to get out and get exercise, and it's great to see the uptick, the increase in cycling that has happened, and more local bridleways being used. The surface is suffering at the moment, but again, that's something we can perhaps push our county councillors to look at in future in terms of those bridleways. But it's a slow process, and it's just bringing it to their attention and raising the agenda. Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Richardson wishes to comment.
Yep.
And then
Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I think their comments, I cycled in North Wales, so I know what hills are like. The local planning is ideal, really, at the moment for comments on cycling routes, because although, it's been earmarked, it's still out for consultation. I think it might be, it is imperative that we put that onto the local plan as a request, as the new housing estates are huge. I mean, we know the one Carlton Road and that side. And I think it's part of planning process that we start initiating these processes for planning developers to use the money for infrastructure, not just for roundabouts or anything else they're doing, but the actual walkways and on these estates, because they're so huge. Ashes Park, for instance, I mean, that's a massive one. It's got fields at the side of it, and it's not all built up that as you go into it. They've done the traffic lights, but there's just still the pavement there. That's an ideal opportunity for a cycle path and a walkway. I lived in Germany. I was used to cycle paths. You had them everywhere you went, and we all know what Amsterdam and Holland and Netherlands are what it's like, and Germany. I mean, it's something that we should have had. We haven't got them, and all on housing estates. No matter where you went on your bike. We can't do it here until COVID came. It's not safe, and we need one down. I'm on St Anne's Estate, and we need one from here on the way up to Sainsbury's. People walk on the grass. If that was a slowed down a mile per hour, it's 70 mile an hour. It's just not safe. I mean, if it was one down there, I'm just using that as an example, Chair, then you could walk up and down there. I have to go in my car if I want to go, apart from going into town. So I think it's imperative, and I'm on planning, that we should start tackling these problems and say, this is what we need to bring forwards on these estates and what outline planning comes in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. I think we've got till tomorrow to make submissions on the local plan. And if you haven't done so already, do so. And Maddie, I think that's a great idea. What I have actually suggested as part of my submission on the Peaks Hill site, that really it's great to hear about the provision of cycling routes, walking routes within the site, but it's making those connections so it could easily connect up to Ashes Park through Gateford, and then there is a cycle path across Gateford to Valley Road. So it's making the connections into the town centre. Same with the Garden Village. There's a possibility there connecting Retford and Worksop through that site. But anyway, do make submissions. Do think about that. Any other comments or questions?
Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Tyndall wishes to speak, and then Councillor Naish as also.
Thank you. Clayton, Councillor Tyndall.
Hi, John. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate yourself on all the hard work that you put into this, and how much passion you have with the cycling and walking routes. It's quite good to see. Obviously, being a fellow ward councillor, and I know the layout of our area, we have great connections to Clumber Park, Manton Wood, and obviously what we've just spoken about. I'd send more signs, more media releases of the directions that you can take out of our ward onto these areas, so we can connect onto the canal. We can connect through the golf courses, etc. So it's kind of that's my point on the directions that we can take in trying to highlight. I know that we have some signs up and some directions up on that. And one little concern that I've got, I think everybody might share this with me. It's one of two things. So it's either the weight that I put on the back of my bike. I recently brought a new bike the past couple of weeks. First time that I went out on it, come back and I got a back flat tyre. So I'm either blaming the weight or I'm blaming the state of the roads that we're currently driving through in Manton. They are absolutely terrible. So if anything, if this can work towards rectifying some of our disgusting roads and turning them into better cycle routes for cycles to go on, one, I won't get as many flat tyres, and two, I can keep fit.
Yes, thanks for the comment. Yeah, potholes are a problem for cyclists and motorists, and definitely. And actually, through our ward, we have actually got National Cycle Route 6. It comes through Worksop on the canal, and then over the footbridge over the bypass and into Clumber. So it goes through Manton. There is some signage. It's not great. And the whole National Cycle Network is under review at the moment. So, yeah, I'd be looking to see some improvements there. But that, again, often relies on local volunteers sort of getting involved. So I'm one of those, so we can get little signs put up, but it's the county council that tends to do the bigger metal ones. Thanks for that. And there is a good cycle lane along Retford Road. Well, relative to the rest of the district, it's got one of the better ones, and it connecting with Wilco's and so on, and the industrial estate. And I believe there are plans as part of the local plan to connect that to the new employment area and the garden village. So that's extending it further. So that's good. And I know people like Sustrans are sitting on the Garden Village stakeholder group, so having input into that. Are there any other comments or questions on this, or anything else on the work programme?
Chair, no, I was just going to say I agree with. I was just going to say I agree with Maddie, and I think across the country, councils are increasingly putting pressure on developers to deliver in line with the green agenda, whether that is solar panels, whether that's electric boilers, whether that's heat pumps, whether that's cycle paths. And I think it is something we have to, as an authority, think really carefully about. I know we are acutely concerned that you don't want to lose the developer interest in the area because we've got to meet our housing targets, but I also feel like everyone across the country is now putting pressure on developers to deliver, because it's one of the few tools that actually local authorities have at their disposal is planning, regulation and rules. So I think definitely when we're looking at this sort of feedback on the draft local plan, I'd like to think that we might sharpen our teeth in one or two areas to deliver on these sort of agendas. Otherwise, I fear that we will fall behind some of the local authorities that are choosing to do that.
I agree with that, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Nash. Yes, because I'm sure a lot of the attraction of moving to an area like this and some of these developments will be the countryside, and developers should be aware that a lot of people will be very interested in walking and cycling routes. So yeah, hopefully they're going to be more responsive and positive to making contributions towards that. Just an example, I can certainly see the damage that's been done to a bridleway by the developer at the Gateford, where they're putting in houses there. So, but that's something I can talk to the county council about, whether they can do something to improve the surface. Thanks for that. Are there any more questions? I'll have to take my iPad to the IT, I think, or ring them up and see what I can do about this to get the latest software. I can't see the hands going up. But okay, I'd like, assuming there aren't any more questions, I will like to move that the committee note the response from Cabinet, and progress will be monitored and brought back to ONS in approximately 12 months' time. Anyone not in favour of that course of action? No, that is carried. Thank you. We now move on to section B, items for discussion in private. There are no key decisions in this section. Item number 11, waiver call-in decision taken without sufficient notice. There are none. Item 12, possible call-in of decisions of Cabinet or Cabinet members. There are none. Item 13, any other business which the Chair considers to be urgent, and I don't have anything else to add. So that concludes the meeting, and thank you very much for attending and for the quality of discussion. And let's hope we don't have any more technical interruptions like that. And but we're all living learning about this, aren't we? And yep, thank you again.